Red light. Welcome back to another episode of Dad's Toy Garage. We're working on the 1973 Celica Resto Mod, and I've kind of ended up turning this car into a Resto Mod. We're going to be starting today with more fitment on this quarter panel, and I've been working on Project Snake Charmer with Tony for a bit, and I waited about 2 months on door pins, maybe it's 2.5 months, and I needed those to get the door straight because it would sag so much, and then I wouldn't have had proper quarter panel alignment. So we're going to get into that today, and just follow along. Let's have some fun. Alright guys, the first thing I want to do on the quarter panel alignment is get this door to sit in alignment. And so I got a little baggie of stuff here. It came out of Thailand. Door pins and bushings. I don't know how much we'll see in there, but there's bushings and pins, and we're going to see if we can get the old ones to pop out of the hinges here. Bob came down tonight to help me with the door pin. It took a lot longer than I expected. We got one pin done here, pin kit. So we got the new bushings. They go into this part of the hinge, and then you hammer it in and you grind off the top so that the spring, there's a spring that needs to go here so it fits. We had to make a couple tools. Let's just find them here. This was an old screwdriver for small bolts that I never use, and the cool thing was it fit exactly inside here. So we tried drilling first. We cut it off here and here with the saw. Then I put the new bushings, brass bushings in here. The original ones look like they were plastic, what was left of them. Then use this to hammer it through. And the cool part is this is exactly the same size, but it still slides through there. Let's get this door mounted. I got the bottom bushing pin set changed out. We're going to try it without doing the top one for now. It felt fairly tight, so well, if we need to change it, we can do it after that. That'll stay ready. I've been using a stir stick to get my gaps right. Just stick in the bottom of the door like this, and then I can bolt things down tight. I spent probably an hour or so getting this door to fit right. I got the gap where it needs to be now. I'm happy with that gap. Before I could probably fit my finger in. Now it's more the width where it needs to be. I ended up taking the rubber mallet on the inside here, in this edge where it's the strongest, and hammering that, bending by hand to get where it needs to be. I got the gap here right, or on the height of the door right. The other issue I was having was on the bottom here. This was touching no matter how I aligned the pins, and it is not welded on, but it is screwed in place like this, but that's the fitment where it needs to be. So now what I ended up doing, because now the gap is right all the way through to the front, but what I ended up doing was taking my rubber mallet, and right here where the sill plate will get screwed later, I kind of just hit it on here first, then it went down and hit it. Then I would close the door, test the alignment, and each hit kind of brought it closer where it needed to be. So that's what fixed that. And the front, the gap should be alright too. So I'm happy with that fitment on that part. The next thing I want to do is start fitting this quarter panel here, and that's also going to be where now we can finally cut this last strip of the old quarter panel off, because I know I got my gap right here, and the door sitting where it needs to be, so we can start fitting that. So these spot welds in here, to remove this piece, is what they're going to have to be ground down, and what I'm using is just my angle grinder and cut off this and just working it kind of slowly. Let's tag each spot weld one at a time. I like to leave as much base metal to weld on there. This is after I've removed that piece. And you can see there's a lot of metal that I can now weld to after I've cleaned it up. And that's what my goal is with the way I remove that panel. So this is a piece of quarter panel I just cut off. And right here is the gap where I had to hammer on the inside. And because I just couldn't get the door to line up even with adjusting the hinges. And looking at the back, got this old school where you drill it and I think you'd pull it out with a stud puller of some sort. And these are just body filler squirt throughs. And I'm thinking the reason that gap didn't line up is because this has had damage in the back quarter. So that makes a lot more sense to me now. So that's it, just kind of laid up on there. It is not in correct position yet, but starting to do thinking on where I want to do my welds and stuff. But the starting point will be, this has been blasted and I primed it, and this is all rust, blow through kind of stuff. And the thing is, the car this came off of was the same year car, but there's a vinyl top on the car this quarter was off of. So I'm probably going to cut this off clean here and then come meet up at this point. I've made the cut line in Sharpie here. I'm going to kind of follow this body curve line in there. And then this is the other part I was talking about that has to come off, and there's a bit of a back bracing behind there. But that'll allow me to get this quarter panel fit a little bit better yet. That's the piece we needed out of there. So we're getting the fit pretty close now. I've got this cut out here. We can now slide in. It sits on the rocker. That's getting close. Let's get a closer look at this. So you can see where I've made my cut along the top. There's a little bit of overlap here, but I got the little, can't see much there, but see there's a little point there. That gives me a marker point for that. When we close the door, this gap's getting close now. The bottom needs more fitment work. My next decision to make is how I want to join this. So I want to do it the same as the other side, do an overlap in here. We'll see what I decide. The last one I actually cut out this section of the quarter panel, and then I had to fill a weld and play with the lead here. I don't know if I want to do that again. This will fit nice here, that'll be no problem. We'll close the trunk, we got to work on our gapping a bit. As you can see, this needs to come down a bit. It's a bit high on the quarter panel. I figured out some of my fitment issue here on the trunk. It makes a lot more sense now because it fit before. It should still fit. When you open up the trunk, I forgot to run the weather strip on here. That makes a big difference at the height that it sits at. So that'll help a lot with lining things up. Because now it's back to the gap that I'd originally been trying to hit. So now it's figuring out where I need to make some more cuts for getting fitment right. It's pretty exciting to see this car becoming more complete. This is the line here in Sharpie where I will replace the quarter panel on that side, kind of in that same spot. The problem I had was grinding this smooth in this corner wasn't very much fun. So what I'm going to do is take it behind the corner, and that should make it a lot easier to grind all this smooth once it's welded in place. So I think that's where that joint is going to be, and then it'll overlap halfway in here. This is the amount that I'm taking out here, and then we'll test fit the quarter panel now again. Gap got a little wider than I was anticipating, but now I can weld it in these two spot welds, and this will weld down to the framework that's there. And I got a nice spot to grind on once it's all welded up. I don't have to go in the curve at all or deal with any of this lead this time. So I'm much happier about that. Alright guys, we got a lot of fitment done here. I got it fit up into here. This is good. This is good. This wideness in this gap came back here, and I do start to wonder if it has something to do with when the car is being jumped by whoever's jumped it in the past. Pretty impressive floor panel damage, and it actually was this side that I had to work out. Now that I'm thinking about it, that was worst from the. It was all this footwell in this area. This whole rocker panel was about pushed in about this much, and pretty much anything that hang low had to be worked back out. And then it had the dent in the top of the tunnel of the drive shaft area in the back where the universal joint connects to the differential. There's a dent there on top of the tunnel. So I'm thinking it's been done pretty hard, and that this gap is from that. I'll get a close up on that. You can see what I'm talking about. So this is good here. This will work for me. This will be a butt weld and then a lap weld and butt weld into there. I'm happy with this gap. There'll be a little bit of trunk alignment, latch alignment I got to do here. So that's all set up till about here. Here's the gap I'm talking about. You can probably see how it gets a little bit wider up here as opposed to down here. Doesn't pick it up as much on camera, but in person you can see it. And I think, like I said, underneath there was floor panel damage. In the top of the tunnel, kind of in this area, you can there's a universal. I think it's in there somewhere. There's a universal joint dent, and this rocker panel in there, the original one, was probably pushed in this much. And all of this had been flattened out. I had to hammer and dolly that back. Yeah, so I think the jump had a little to do with tweaking this body in this area here, and that's why it's kind of widened out there. I'm pretty sure it will be fine as long as we can get the windows to seal up when it's done. The next thing I have, same issue on the other side. These are aftermarket rockers, and they've required a lot of tweaking. They were from Wolf Steel. So the issue is this needs to sit. There's a bit of a gap on the bottom. I'm not sure if we'll see it without a light, but you can see it here. This gap here is because this portion is too wide here, so the rocker sticks out a little bit too far. So on the other side, I actually cut it along here and built a new piece, built this piece new, and I used a thicker gauge steel so that it would last a little bit better against rusting. The back here, I gotta work out a bit of a dent and then get this triangle filled here. I'll have to build that piece. That's how this quarter came to me, so I'll do a little bit of fab there. We got some rust to deal with here, but I got a solution for that. We'll grab the part here. This piece here should work very well for that. Because it'll actually be more than I need. But that'll fix all the rust problem. And that came off of the really poor quarter panel repair that was done on this car for the rust that was in this area. So this will be the second time for sure, maybe third, that this has been done on this car in its lifetime. And then after that, we're going to build the inner wheel arch, and I got those parts too. This is the matching set arch, that one there, and we got a bit of rust in here. Lots of puzzling, patching together, but we got this one here that will work for that. So all these pieces together should finish everything off very nicely, and then I should be a lot fairly close to getting ready to take the car to media blasting. there'll be like the roll pan that we got to do and a couple other small things. And the window right in here, this will be a rust spot we got to fix yet. That's actually the only one that I found in the window area. I think these have tendency to rust out a lot more than that in these window rail areas. So that's where we're at.